What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Robbie Cassidy, and on this episode of the podcast, we are going to look at breathing as a line of defense or a line of attack on sensitivity. Now, this podcast came to me because basically I was on a call with a client recently who had a pretty severe fall a couple of months ago, and as a result of the fall, he picked up different injuries at the time, but since then the whole body has gone into this locked state, and now his back and his all up one side of his body is really, I guess it's impacted him. It's gotten tight, it's gotten sore, and he's unable to get back to exercising back on the bike since. And it's something that we dove into on the call because this guy has played at a high level for years in sport, so he's well accustomed of being beat up, and let's say the sport he was playing was rugby, so he's getting beat up and thrown around and smacked around a little bit. So something like this, often at the time you feel like you just brush it off and get on with it, but it's obviously stuck around longer. And when something like that sticks around longer than like a normal injury might, like a hamstring tear or an ankle sprain, and now there's a full response of the body, we need to look at what's actually happening here. And there's a lot of ways that we can dive into it and we can look at it, but one of the simple ones is that he reported to me on the call that he said, when I'm up and I'm moving, I feel good. I can go out and I can work around the house, I can do my bits, but then as soon as I stop, it starts to creep in. And this is such a common experience that a lot of people deal with. You're moving, everything's good, and then as you start to move into that resting state, that's when you notice the discomfort more. That's when you notice the problem. So it was something that it was kind of nice to go over and back on, because we were able to hash it out in more detail. And now this isn't just, I guess, I'm putting this podcast together because this has cropped up with multiple people over the last week. A lot of people that I work with are dealing with these type of consistent injuries for a long time, and you kind of get lost when you're in a position that you go to your acute physio, you get a massage, you get a couple of exercises, but then it comes back again and it comes back again, and you get your injections and it comes back again. And the thing here is that we're looking at is just avoiding surgery. There's an absolutely unnecessary to get surgery here. Now, one of the analogies I used at the time, and I think that this was it kind of helps to explain it for certain people, is that if you played sports before, or if you were ever involved in activity and you were going about, you got a bang in a match or a game or during that activity, and you kind of brushed it off and you got back to it and you were able to stay going, and then after the match that started to creep in and it started to become a problem again. Now, this is such a common experience. And why? Because what happens is the body's in the state of it doesn't need to deal with this right now, because it's not so severe an injury that it has completely immobilized you. It puts it on the back burner, and people always talk about, okay, it's testosterone or it's adrenaline that's causing it. But really what it is, it's like a survival mechanism. There's bigger issues at play. And I was describing it to him. I said, if you get a bang in a match and there's a 110 kilo prop coming at you, that is the last thing on your mind is the bang that you just took, because you kind of have to get up and get going again. And then after the match, you start to pick up on these. Now, what happens there is that it's not exactly, as I said, it's not exactly that you've injured it and then adrenaline has kept you going. In many cases, the body prioritizes the survival in the moment. And then, so the nervous system says, we don't need to focus on that now. We can focus on that after. If it becomes a bigger problem, obviously we'll highlight it. And then you come back, you go into the dressing room, you tog in, you have your showers, you go home, you wake up the next day and you're in bits. Okay, this is your body sensitivity increases significantly the next day after. But what it also is it's this style of protection where the body kind of stops you moving to see and kind of give a scan to see what needs to be fixed. So it's not really a setback as much as it's a protective mechanism. Now, there's obviously multiple ways of doing this. Like, you'll often see with UFC fighters that they might break a foot and the next day comes back more severe. Now, that's different. I'm talking about more where you get a bang and then the protection comes in and you stop moving, and then this kind of builds it on itself. And what's happening here is the nervous system is closing off the areas that feel safe. So you'll see this so commonly with people who deal with whiplash injuries, where whiplash, the car accident happens, the neck gets put into a position that it's obviously, you can have some tissue damage, and then the tissue damage clears up within, let's give it a long time frame, let's say 3 to 6 months, give you a lot of time to actually heal the damage. But then 3 years later, you're still dealing with the same problem. So it's extremely common with a traumatic injury like that, because there's more to it than just the injury itself, if you know what I mean. There's more going on. Like, it was a very traumatic event. Emotionally, you have to process that. And then the other very interesting one is that if there's an insurance claim as well, it generally sticks around until the insurance claim has completely been processed, which people might say, oh, they're faking it, but it's not that anyone's faking it. It's that the body is still on edge, and it's the survival mode is still kicking in, and it's still protecting it. So there's more to that than just, oh, someone's faking it, they don't have it. It's the nervous system is kind of running an old program. And the old program is like, when you look at the idea that you can move and then the pain goes away and then you come back and you sit down and the pain kicks back in again, that's the program is designed to say that, okay, movement is safety, and then stillness, this sitting down, is more of a threat. And this is an interesting one because it kind of flips it on its head. While generally movement is the problem, stillness is the safety aspect of it. It can go both ways. And I had been back to exercise group call just before this, and one of the guys is saying that he moves around and it hurts him for a while, and then when he stops, it completely goes away. And that, you can look at that, and well, obviously you have to look at the condition there as well of what he's dealing with. He's dealing with a stenosis. But then I was like to him, okay, well, let's actually move more, get over the first initial bit of pain that's there, and see how you feel. And then what you'll notice is that once you start moving through it, after 5 minutes of kind of warming up to it, it'll often dissipate as well. So what happens then, you sit down, you come back, you're sitting on your couch, and there's a subconscious pattern that starts to kick in here. This is really interesting, okay? Because what's happening is the nervous system is starting to close off every movement. And it's like, when I said this to him, I said, do you ever find yourself sitting there checking the pain, always looking for it? And he said, yeah, it's nearly like I'm kind of chasing the pain a small bit. And I said, yeah, well, what's happening is your comfort zone is starting to shrink, and the system is tightening up any area. And if this is on video now, you'd be able to see this. But what happens is you lean to one side a bit, and then you lift up that shoulder, and you bring your ear down to the shoulder, and then you twist yourself a small bit. And you're always kind of like chasing this pain a little bit, but at the same time, you're trying to get yourself out of it, or you're trying to put yourself in a position that it's a bit more comfortable. But the position might be more comfortable for a second. But then when you're looking at sustained contractions, where you're holding that for a long time, like, things will fatigue. And the next analogy that I use, I said, is like, okay, you're playing your game. It's the 70th minute of the game, and now your calf starts to cramp. Well, why is your calf cramping? One of the first things that you would look at is fatigue. So why would fatigue play a role here? And how could that present in the body? So you're in this position now that this has been going on for months. You're kind of cropped over to one side. And this is why when people come to me and say, my physio said I had a twisted spine, my hip was offline, my one leg is shorter than the other. Like, if your hip is offline, generally one leg is going to be shorter than the other, but it's a hip hike. You lift up one side because you're contracting the muscle on that side. So oftentimes, like, basically, you're looking at signs there. Okay, you're not looking at the core issue. Okay, if you work on this, you might see an improvement for a short time, but unless you work on the core issue, you're just going to fall back into that position again over a couple of weeks to a couple of months. And honestly, it's about 48 hours. Okay, and why do I say that? Because if you look at the impact of what a massage has, or chiropractic adjustment, it's about 48 hours. And you feel good, and then it kicks back in again. So that's why, like, the dry needling and all that as well is the same. Why does that happen? Because we start to shift back into the subconscious pattern again. We don't realize it. It's really subtle shifts in posture. You rotate your hips, your shoulder hikes up a little bit. You kind of twist your spine a small bit. And what's happening is it's like you're chasing it. Okay, that's the big thing. It's like you're chasing. Now it can happen both ways. You can actually go to the opposite side to try stretch it and try to move it, or you can move into the same side. So it really depends on your experience with the pain. Now, everything starts to tighten up. The muscle feels, or the movement starts to feel unsafe. You feel like you're moving like a block. Now, what happens here? As I said, calves cramp at the end of the game because of fatigue. You're in this position for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days a week, 2 months. The muscles will fatigue because they have been in a position they're just consistently contracted. So what happens then is you can get these spasms. Okay, multiple reasons for back spasms. This is only one kind of a concept that can drive it, where it's just been going on too long, and the fatigue sets in and it kicks off. Okay, and then obviously it's a back spasm. It's not a calf cramp, even though it's the exact same thing. Let's call it a calf spasm just to make it the language sound the same, or let's call it a back cramp and a calf cramp, whichever one you want to. But because it's in your back, you react differently. You start to get a lot of fear. You want to stop it immediately. You don't know what to do. You don't want to make it worse, and you understand that your nervous system or your spinal cord is there as well. So it drives it from a 3 to 4, like what a calf cramp would be, up to a 10 out of 10. Okay? This is the problem. So that's a fear-based response that drives the pain even higher. Now, hopefully that's starting to make sense. It starts to fatigue, you're holding this crop position, and then people come to me and they say, I'm just constantly in a state of spasm. Anytime I go to move, anytime I do anything, I'm in a state of spasm. So what we always do with those people, we bring them in, we say, I want you to do these very basic movements on a day-to-day, and we look at the foundations to try calm down that system. And this is what we do in the Back Pain Back to Exercise program. This is what we do in our one-to-one select program as well. It's always about bringing in, understanding what's going on, setting the foundations, and then making the changes as we have to after that. Okay? But if you are fearing it all the time and you're like really think that this is going to get worse, or this is going to, in a lot of cases, like, what will I be like in 10 years? Will I be in a wheelchair? I often hear people say that, which is really scary. Like, that is going to drive a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety with people. And you need to recognize that there is certain thought patterns that create a bigger problem here. It's catastrophization. Here, another little example of catastrophization. I was talking, so I'm in Brazil at the moment, and I have a couple of friends here, and some of them are lawyers, and we were talking about their job, and I was like, okay, I understand there's high risks involved, but like really and truly, the risks are not as severe as what you're making them out to be. Okay, I was just playing devil's advocate just because I was being a bollocks, right? I work with a lot of lawyers. I understand that it's obviously a high stress job, but the reason I was saying that is that I was like to them, so you're in a job, and if you do make a mistake, there's a chance you lose your job. Okay, but there's a possibility, then a pretty good one, considering the amount of lawyers that are out here, there's a good possibility that you can get another job. Okay, but what these are doing, and they're fresh out of college, so they're like 24, 25, 26, just into kind of the workspace, getting used to it. They're like, no, not a hope. If I lose this job, that's me done, finished. Like, I won't get a job ever again, because it's a small world, everyone knows each other, and they'll know not to hire me, so I cannot make any mistakes ever. And I was like, well, you're never going to learn, first off. And I was like, second, that's catastrophization. And what that catastrophization does is when you think like that all the time, that drives your stress higher naturally, okay? Because you're always on edge and you're in this state of consistent threat. And if you don't change your perspective on that, that's going to have long-term effects on your health, because you will constantly be in a state of high blood pressure. You constantly be in a state of using energy, mobilization. You'll never get into a state of recovery. And this is honestly why, like, a lot of my one-to-one clients are lawyers. A lot of them, because it's this position that you get into, very, very it's a very difficult position to get into. You're obviously, it's high level, you're a high achiever, you're a high performer, and now to continue to stay in that position, you put this stress on yourself, or this unnecessary kind of it's an unnecessary stress in some ways, because it's something that's outside of your control. Okay, there's an element that's in your control, there's an element that's outside your control. Now, if you stay in the state for a long time, things will start to break down, because to be in this alert state all the time, you can't recover, because you can't be using energy and have high blood pressure and have all of the energy in your system within the bloodstream, because you need to mobilize and you need to think and you need to be always locked in. If you're always locked in, you can never switch off. And it's funny how that works, because it's a nervous system that goes 0 to 10. Okay, I always use this. 0, parasympathetic, everything is chill. 10 is sympathetic, you're on borderline having a panic attack, you're about to have a heart attack. Okay, just because you're driving it to the core, like too much. You're burning the candle from both ends. If you never get below a 5, you will never get into a recovery state, because your body will be constantly training itself to become more efficient at being in a stress state. You need to think about that. If you're constantly training yourself to be in a stress state and you never actually get into this recovery state, you're going to have trouble. Okay? So that's what I was saying to these guys, because I was like, you're so young that you can really break this pattern now, or you can be aware of it, and it's not like, it hopefully will have less of an impact on you. A lot of people who come to me, they're 35, they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s, they're in their 60s, 70s, and even in some cases we have people in the back exercise who are well into their 80s. Okay, so in that case, you're looking to kind of work on these patterns. You're looking to minimize the effect of it, and you're looking to get into this recovery state. Now, how do we do that? What's one way that we can do it? Really, really simple. Okay, let's go back to the state where you've created this kind of a extremely protective state in the body. You're cropped over to one side, you're twisted, your hips are offline, one shoulder's up, one shoulder's down, your posture's gotten really bad. Now you're sitting all day, you're stressed out at work, you're stressed out that the back is going to get worse, you're stressed out that you're going to be in a wheelchair if you continue going down the path you're going. Now you're noticing that other areas are kicking up, like now your left knee is kicking up for no reason and your right foot is kicking up, and is there other conditions going on, and all of this, okay? It's this catastrophization is driving it. Now, what can we do in that situation? Well, first off, to get into recovery state, it's funny because you're trying not to force yourself into recovery state. You can force yourself into a high energy state, but you can't really force a sleep unless you take a load of sleeping pills. And now sleeping pills also don't actually help you get into a deep sleep state. They just put you into a sedated state. It's really important to understand that. So what we do instead is we look at how we can directly impact the nervous system. And one that works really well is taking your focus from everything that's going on around you in your environment and in your life, and instead looking at your breath and looking at your breathing rate. Now, why does this make a difference? Well, if you want to just do it right now, inhale, exhale really fast. And watch, if you don't pass out first because you blow off all your carbon dioxide, watch how your heart rate increases. Short, shallow breaths are going to drive your heart rate up, and it becomes a natural stress response. And then what I also want you to notice is the next time this happens, you're sitting down, maybe you're listening to this podcast in a car, or you're listening to it at home, wherever you're listening to it, you're sitting down and you're noticing that pain is starting to kick up. I want you to become aware of this guarded bracing position. What's a braced position? Really simple one. When somebody jumps out and scares you, that's a braced position where you lock up. Now, I want you to see, are you in this braced position? Are you holding yourself with tension? Is your jaw clenched? Are your fists clenched? Are you basically trying to manually keep the shoulder in the socket in some ways, where you're contracting everything around it? If you're not aware of this, it's very hard to change it. So the very first step in overcoming this is becoming aware of how the body changes and how this state starts to creep in over time. So first off, is your breath shallow? Are you bracing? Is your jaw clenched? Now, are you twisted to one side? Are you noticing that you're contracting the muscle and kind of chasing that pain a little bit? Now you've noticed that and you've become aware of it, what do? We respond really, really simply by just focusing on our breathing. Breathing can calm your system, but it only comes with awareness. You have to recognize the shift into that shallow, fast, braced breathing first, and then you can start to look at, the easiest way to say it is like you speak its language. You don't try to override the system with this force. You just focus on using your breath to work on the mind and the body at once. And you're working into a calm state. So instead of trying to push really hard, what I want you to focus on is nasal breathing. Inhale 2 to 3 seconds. And you can do it with me because I'm going to do it on the podcast so people get an understanding. Inhale 2 to 3 seconds. Exhale even slower, more like a sigh. And you keep it through your nose or your mouth. And then you pause at the bottom just for a moment. But I want you to be there. I want you to sit there. Okay? So with the pause at the bottom, there's no rush to get the next exhale in. We need to sit there and just allow the system to soften. And then you go back for your slow inhale for another 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 seconds. And you repeat this for 5 minutes, 6 minutes. It doesn't really make a difference what time it is, but what you're looking at doing is that idea of the system softening. That's what you're looking to do. So let's go through it really quickly. Inhale slowly through your nose and hold it for 2 to 3 seconds. Now we're going to exhale, but we're going to exhale even slower. And I want you to think of like a sigh, where you're letting everything drop out. And you can exhale through your nose, or you can exhale through your mouth. And we're going to pause at the bottom just for a moment. I want you to just sit there with it. And we're going to inhale again really slowly. And you're going to hold 2 to 3 seconds. And then like that sigh again, exhale even slower. So the goal here is that it's not like we're trying to fix our breathing. And I want you to continue doing that as I'm talking through the rest of this podcast. It's about building trust with your body again. Just no matter where you are, be there, be present, stay curious, don't rush it. Breathe as a way of that you're trying to reconnect. It's okay that your body's going into this. It feels like it's helping you. It feels like it's moving into this state that, okay, we need to be here, we need to take care, but we're not going to look to control that. We're just going to reconnect. We're going to shake out a little bit. And we're going to just allow the system to soften. And as you start to do it, you'll notice that the time doesn't actually become that important, because you start not thinking that, okay, I have another 60 seconds to go, I have another minute to go, and you start thinking instead around the sigh, the just pure relaxation, the bliss, and what we're doing here is we're not looking to fix our posture, we're looking to build trust. And as this system starts to calm, and as you do that sigh, and as you relax everything down, you'll notice that the pain often dissipates and your posture will start to improve naturally. You can let go of that contraction, you can let go of the flinching, you can let go of the safety net. And by just adding in that little shake, you'll notice that movement starts to open up again. And just continue that as you want. Continue it as you need. It's about just being consistent. The goal is softening. There's no real, even to get into it, the goal is not, there's no real goal. We're just looking to quiet. Now, I want you to use this as a daily check-in. So when you're noticing that your body is starting to get tight and it's starting to get sore, we're not looking for a performance here. We're just looking for regulation. So you're sitting there and you notice, oh, that pain is starting to kick up in my shoulder again. That pain is starting to kick up in my back as I'm sitting here. I can't enjoy the TV. I can't just sit down and enjoy myself. Then you can stay in that spot and you can breathe through it. You can lie on the floor and you can breathe through it. And it's just about regulation. It's just about allowing the body and being empathetic with the body and just saying that it's okay to move into this state, that we're safe now. And as we say in the group, we're looking for small changes. We're looking for that 1% improvement every day. That's how we get this consistent long-term shift. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that makes sense. And that now moving forward, you have a strategy and a tactic to help you to overcome this really specific, annoying pain that so many people deal with on day to day. If you need any help with this, we're always open to taking people on into the Back Pain Back to Exercise group. And you can work with us. We do group calls. We have a nice community there. We always set out action plans. You have a very clear structure of what to follow. Just email at info@themobilitytutor.com, and all you have to say is just, can I get more details with the back pain group, or just back pain group, or I listened to this podcast and I'm interested. That's all you have to say. Don't worry about what to say. Just send the email and we can definitely help you out. And if you're in more of a position that you're saying, I need more one-to-one help, I'm looking for like longer term, I have goals that I want to get back to, whether that be a sport or exercise. Like, I have people getting back right now to triathlons. I have people getting back to golf. I have those getting back to the gym, to high rocks, into rugby, into Gaelic football. I have so many, from so many different corners of the world. And it's all just people who are in a position that they want to do better. So if that's you, our select program opens and closes, and we have at different stages, we have different people, or different spaces, I should say. So you can just let me know. Send me an email, and when a space opens up, we can see if you're a good fit, and we can go from there. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I hope the podcast helped you. And I want you to take that with you. I want you to take that breathing pattern, or that awareness, breathing awareness more so than anything. And I want you to start to use it on a day-to-day. What can you connect it to that you're already doing? The kettle, when it's boiling, when you're making dinner, when you're sitting down after a rough day and you just want to give yourself 5 minutes before you jump on Instagram and start checking everything again. If you need anything, shoot us an email, info@themobilitytutor.com, or contact me on Instagram at RobbieCassidy_, or LinkedIn at just Robbie Cassidy. And if you enjoyed this podcast, I would love if you could send it on to somebody who you think would be interested in it, or who you think would help. It's a great way of just getting the podcast out there and helping more people. And then the very last thing is, if you enjoyed it, I'd love if you could rate the podcast. If you could give it a 5-star rating. I want to get it up to 1,000 reviews, and right now we're way off that. But slowly but surely, I see them coming in each week, and I really appreciate everyone who does. So thank you so much. Thank you for helping out. I hope that the feeling is mutual. I hope that this helps you too. And if in future you do need help with anything, or if at the moment, please don't hesitate. I'm always here to chat. That's going to be all for me today. And I'll check you all at the same time next week. Have a good one.